The evening quiet was a much-needed reprieve for Judge Sophia Grant after a demanding day presiding over cases that tested her patience and fortitude. The soft glow of her dashboard illuminated the car's interior as she drove through the winding streets of Riverpoint, her thoughts a swirl of relief and exhaustion. The steady hum of the engine was her only companion, a momentary oasis of peace in a world too often marked by chaos and inequities. Sophia had climbed her way to the bench, earning the respect of her peers as one of the most formidable legal minds in the state. But her path was paved with obstacles. A lifetime of facing bias and doubters had left its marks, even as she stood tall against a justice system that often seemed skewed against people like her. The glow of blue and red lights flashing in her rearview mirror shattered her moment of calm. Her stomach sank as anxiety gripped her chest. Not now, not tonight. Sophia pulled to the side of the road, taking a deep breath to steady herself. She reminded herself that she was more than her title, she was a citizen deserving of respect and fairness. The officer approached, his silhouette towering against the glare of the cruiser's headlights. His expression was stern, his movements deliberate. Sophia straightened her posture, her hand already reaching for her license and registration. License and registration, the officer barked, his tone clipped and impersonal. What seems to be the issue, officer? Sophia asked, keeping her voice steady. We received a report that this vehicle was seen leaving a crime scene. You'll need to step out of the car, he replied, his gaze unyielding. Sophia's pulse quickened. This wasn't a routine stop, it felt calculated, menacing. I assure you, officer, I've done nothing wrong. I've been driving home from the courthouse all evening. The officer's eyes flicked to her judge's ID, a flicker of recognition crossing his face. But it was fleeting, quickly replaced by a smirk that made Sophia's blood boil. A judge, huh? Think that makes you untouchable, he sneered. Let's see how far that gets you. Sophia felt her composure slipping. I know my rights, she said firmly. You have no basis to detain me. Your car matches the description, and we have a witness, he replied, dismissive. Now, step out, or I'll make you. The threat hung in the air, heavy and foreboding. Sophia knew she had no choice. As the officer cuffed her roughly, a surge of indignation coursed through her. She had spent her life fighting for justice, yet here she was, reduced to a suspect in a system that seemed determined to strip her of her dignity. The ride to the police station felt endless. The streets of Riverpoint blurred past, but Sophia's thoughts were sharper than ever. Every turn of the wheels deepened her resolve. She wouldn't let this injustice define her. At the station, the treatment was no less demeaning. Officers cast indifferent glances as she was marched through the precinct. It didn't matter who she was, a judge, a woman, a professional. Here, she was just another black woman accused of wrongdoing. In the stark interrogation room, Sophia sat shackled to the table, the cold steel biting into her wrists. A folder was slammed down in front of her, jarring her from her thoughts. Well, Judge, the officer began, sarcasm lacing his words. Let's talk about why your car was at the scene of a robbery. Sophia's voice was steady, but her anger simmered beneath the surface. This is absurd. I was nowhere near the city center. I can provide witnesses to verify my whereabouts. We have surveillance footage, he replied smugly. And a witness statement. Sounds like a tough spot for someone who's supposed to uphold the law. Sophia clenched her fists. Those claims are false. You're targeting the wrong person. The officer leaned closer, his breath acrid with disdain. You think your title will save you? This isn't about justice, it's about control. And right now, I'm in control. The words stung more than Sophia anticipated. They echoed the systemic prejudices she had battled her entire life. But she refused to let them break her. Another officer entered, this one calmer and more composed. He introduced himself as Detective Miller and took a seat across from her. Judge Grant, I'm here to get to the truth. We need to understand why your vehicle was identified at the scene of the robbery. Sophia met his gaze, her resolve unwavering. I have nothing to hide. I was at the courthouse all day. Check the records. Detective Miller nodded, scribbling notes. We'll verify that. But you should know the evidence we have is substantial. Sophia leaned forward, her voice firm. I have spent my entire career upholding the law. I won't let baseless accusations tarnish my name. Detective Miller seemed to recognize the fire in her eyes. We'll look into everything, he said before exiting the room. Left alone, Sophia's thoughts churned. The battle wasn't over. If anything, it had just begun. She wouldn't let this injustice define her, not for herself, not for the people who looked up to her. She would rise above and prove that truth and dignity could prevail, even in a world that so often sought to strip them away. The walls of the small, stark room felt like they were closing in, pressing down on Judge Elena Price with the weight of the false accusations against her. Every tick of the clock echoed loudly in the silence, a reminder of the gravity of her situation. She wasn't just a judge, she was a woman of color navigating a system that often failed to recognize her humanity and dignity. As she waited, memories of her childhood in Merrifield flooded back. Growing up in a working-class neighborhood, where the police were often seen as adversaries rather than protectors, had shaped her deeply. She remembered countless nights spent studying at the kitchen table, fueled by her mother's unwavering belief in her potential. You can rise above this, her mother had always said. Hard work and resilience will carve your path. But today, those lessons felt overshadowed by the looming shadow of injustice. Finally, the door creaked open, and the officer who had arrested her entered the room. His expression was less combative now, replaced by a calmness that unsettled her. Judge Price, we need to discuss your case further, he said, sitting across from her. Elena straightened her posture. Let's get one thing clear, she replied, her voice unwavering. I've done nothing wrong. I demand to see the evidence you claim to have. The officer leaned back, crossing his arms. We have a witness who saw your car near the jewelry store during the robbery. Their testimony aligns with the surveillance footage. Elena clenched her fists under the table, forcing herself to stay composed. And what about my alibi? I was at the courthouse all day, presiding over cases. There are records and witnesses to prove it. I understand, the officer said, his tone measured. But the witness's testimony is compelling, and the footage raises questions. This is a high-profile case, and your position complicates things. Complicates things? Elena's voice rose, her frustration boiling over. This isn't complicated. It's an injustice. I've dedicated my life to upholding the law, and now you're telling me my credibility is being questioned because of a witness, and let's not ignore the reality, because of my skin color. The officer shifted in his chair, visibly uncomfortable. I'm not here to undermine you, Judge. I'm just presenting the facts as they stand. We have to follow protocol. Protocol? Elena laughed bitterly. Your protocol seems to involve stripping me of my rights and my dignity. How many times have we seen innocent people, especially people of color, become victims of a biased system? The officer sighed, his neutral expression wavering. I'm just doing my job. And your job, Elena shot back, leaning forward, is to seek justice, not perpetuate injustice. I'm not just another statistic. I'm a judge, and I will fight this with everything I have. The officer seemed to take in her words, the tension in the room shifting. Look, Judge, I didn't come in here to argue. I'm trying to gather facts so we can resolve this quickly. If you can provide a solid alibi and witnesses from the courthouse to confirm your whereabouts, we can move forward. A glimmer of hope flickered in Elena's chest. I can provide that information, she said, her voice steadying. But it doesn't erase the humiliation I've already endured. Do you have any idea how hard it is to be a black woman in this position? The officer nodded slowly, his expression softening. I can't claim to understand your experiences, but I'll do everything I can to make this right. You deserve to be treated with respect. Elena appreciated his shift in tone, but it wasn't enough to quell her anger. Respect is earned, but it's also owed. Just because I wear a robe doesn't mean I'm immune to the prejudices of the world. If anything, it makes me more vulnerable. The officer glanced down at his notes, his brow furrowing in thought. I'll make arrangements to verify your alibi and review the evidence further. We'll proceed from there. Thank you, Elena replied, a flicker of determination reigniting within her. But understand, this isn't just about me. This is about the systemic issues that people like me face every single day. As the officer left, Elena allowed herself a moment to breathe. The possibility of clearing her name felt closer, but the fear of the unknown still loomed large. What if they didn't believe her? What if the system continued to fail her? Hours later, the officer returned with another man, who introduced himself as Detective Oliver Reyes, the lead investigator on the case. Judge Price, Detective Reyes said, extending his hand. I'm here to help us get to the bottom of this. Elena shook his hand firmly, masking her inner turmoil. I hope you understand how urgent this is. Absolutely, Reyes replied, sitting across from her. We need to resolve this quickly. Can you provide the names of your colleagues who can confirm your alibi? I can, Elena said, her confidence returning. I'll give you the list of all the attorneys and staff present in my courtroom yesterday. Good, Reyes said, jotting down notes. But be prepared, the media is already watching this case closely. There's a lot of pressure to find answers. Let them watch, Elena said, her voice firm. This is bigger than me. If my story sheds light on the injustices so many people face, then let the spotlight shine. Reyes raised an eyebrow, seemingly impressed by her resolve. I admire your determination, but you're treading dangerous waters. The odds aren't in your favor. I've faced danger before, Elena replied, her voice resolute. And I won't back down now. I refuse to be another casualty of a broken system. The conversation shifted from hostility to a tentative collaboration. The officers began to see Elena as more than a suspect. She was a woman determined to fight back, not just for herself but for the countless others silenced by the system. We'll gather the evidence and arrange a hearing, Detective Reyes assured her. In the meantime, we'll keep you informed. Thank you, Elena replied, her resolve strengthening. I'll do everything in my power to clear my name, and to ensure this never happens to anyone else. As the officers left, Elena leaned back, her mind buzzing with plans. This wasn't just about proving her innocence. It was about confronting the biases and flaws in the system she had sworn to uphold. The battle wasn't over, it was just beginning. And Judge Elena Price was ready to fight. Detective Ethan Martinez hesitated for a moment, as though carefully choosing his next words. The media will be relentless, especially with the narrative they've already started spinning. It's crucial we get ahead of this. If you have a public relations strategy or someone who can help, I suggest reaching out. I've already thought of that, Judge Maya Caldwell replied, her resolve hardening. I'll contact my mentor, a retired judge with experience handling high-profile cases. She can help guide me through this storm. Good idea, Martinez said with a nod. The more allies you have, the better. But be cautious. Not everyone will be on your side, and some might try to exploit this situation. Stay vigilant. With the detective's words echoing in her mind, Maya prepared herself to take action. Once released from the interrogation room, she knew she needed to control the narrative, before others twisted it against her. After a few strategic calls, Maya felt more prepared. Her mentor, Judge Clara Jennings, didn't hesitate to offer support. Maya, you've worked tirelessly to get where you are, Clara said in a steady, reassuring tone. You're a beacon of hope for so many. We'll navigate this together. Clara's confidence fortified Maya's own. She felt a rush of gratitude for the trailblazers who had come before her and a renewed sense of duty to continue fighting, not just for herself, but for everyone who had faced similar injustices. Shortly after, Detective Martinez returned with another officer, a woman with a calm yet determined demeanor. Judge Caldwell, this is Officer Natalie Simmons. She'll be assisting us in verifying your alibi. Pleasure to meet you, Judge Caldwell, Officer Simmons said, extending her hand with a firm grip. I've heard of your accomplishments. I'm here to help clear this up. Thank you, Officer Simmons. Your support means a lot, Maya replied, her hope flickering to life again. Let's start by reaching out to your colleagues, Simmons suggested. We'll establish your timeline and ensure everyone understands the seriousness of the situation. Together, they worked methodically, contacting Maya's colleagues and gathering statements. Each confirmation of her presence at the courthouse served as a balm to her wounded spirit. With every step forward, Maya felt her confidence rebuild. But she knew the fight was far from over. As they compiled the information, Maya took a moment to reflect. She had always believed in the justice system, trusting it to serve as her shield. But now, it felt like a double-edged sword, its flaws cutting deeper than she'd ever anticipated. Judge Caldwell, Officer Simmons asked gently, do you think this will affect your career? Maya sighed, the weight of the question pressing heavily on her. It already has. My reputation is at stake, and the media won't hesitate to twist the narrative to fit their agenda. But I refuse to let this define me. I will fight, not just for myself, but for everyone who doesn't have the privilege or platform to speak out. Simmons nodded, visibly moved by Maya's resilience. That's the spirit, Judge. If anyone can turn this around, it's you. The truth will prevail. Maya leaned into her work with renewed vigor, collaborating tirelessly with Officer Simmons and Detective Martinez to compile the evidence needed to support her case. With each call and every piece of corroborating information, a network of allies began to form around her. As the day progressed, the atmosphere in the police station shifted. Officers who had once regarded her with skepticism now looked at her with respect. They began to see her not as a suspect, but as a woman of unyielding strength, willing to confront systemic biases head-on. The tense quiet was suddenly shattered by commotion outside the interrogation room. Raised voices and hurried footsteps echoed through the station. The door burst open, and a visibly agitated officer entered. Detective Martinez, we need you immediately, the officer said, urgency in his tone. There's been a development in the case. Maya's pulse quickened as she exchanged a glance with Officer Simmons. What's going on? She asked, keeping her voice steady despite the chaos. There's been a breakthrough with the surveillance footage, the officer explained breathlessly. It might exonerate you completely. Martinez stood quickly. Let's go. This could be the moment we've been waiting for. Maya followed them, her heart pounding with equal parts hope and apprehension. They navigated the bustling station until they reached the evidence room, where monitors displayed various security camera feeds. Gathered around the screen, Martinez began scrolling through the footage. Maya leaned forward, holding her breath. There, Martinez said, pausing the video. This is the time and location where your car was reportedly seen. The footage showed a black sedan pulling into view near the jewelry store. Maya's heart raced as she examined the grainy clip. Is that, she began, her thoughts spinning. Martinez fast-forwarded the footage. As the car came closer to the camera, the angle shifted, revealing details more clearly. It's not my car, Maya said, relief flooding her voice. That's a different model entirely. Mine has distinctive features that aren't visible here. Let's get a closer look, Officer Simmons said, jotting down details from the footage. After further analysis, it was confirmed, the vehicle in the footage did not match Maya's car. The revelation was a glimmer of hope, a crack in the wall of accusations surrounding her. "This changes everything," Martinez said, his tone charged with excitement. "If we can prove this footage shows a different car, the witness's testimony will fall apart." Maya felt a mix of disbelief and relief. "This might save my career," she said quietly, her voice trembling. "We need to act quickly and ensure this evidence is officially recorded," Simmons added with determination. The room buzzed with renewed energy as the team rallied around this breakthrough. Maya felt a surge of strength propel her forward. This fight was no longer just about her, it was about dismantling a system that too often ignored the marginalized. As they finalized the report, Maya glanced around the room. The officers, once her detractors, now stood as allies in her fight for justice. "This isn't just about me," Maya said firmly. "This is about proving that the law should protect everyone, not just a select few. We have to keep pushing, for justice, for truth, for change." The officers nodded in agreement, the determination in the room palpable. The tide was turning, and Maya knew she wasn't fighting alone anymore. Her battle wasn't over, but for the first time, she felt the tide shifting in her favor. Judge Maya Caldwell would not only clear her name, she would stand as a beacon of hope for all who had faced injustice. Part 4, Taking Control. Maya nodded, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. "We need to ensure the media gets the full truth. This isn't just a legal battle, it's a fight for public perception. I can't let my name be dragged through the mud any longer than it already has been." Officer Simmons leaned in, her expression serious. "Once the official report is finalized, we can prepare a press statement. If we get ahead of this, we can control the narrative before it's twisted in the headlines." "Exactly," Maya agreed, her voice steady. "My side of the story has to be heard. This is about more than one incident, it's about addressing the systemic injustices that have plagued marginalized communities for far too long." As they strategized, the mood in the room shifted from tension to a shared sense of purpose. The officers had started to see Maya not just as a judge, but as a symbol of justice, a figure capable of shining a light on the deep-seated issues within their system. Their shared realization reinvigorated them all. When the report was finalized, Maya steeled herself. "Let's present this evidence to the precinct commander. It's vital they understand what's at stake." The group moved swiftly through the bustling station. Maya's steps were purposeful, though anxiety rippled beneath her determination. She was confident in the courtroom, but standing here, before people who had initially doubted her, was a different kind of test. Detective Martinez knocked on the commander's office door, and a deep voice beckoned them to enter. The commander, a seasoned officer whose years of service were etched into his face, looked up as they stepped inside. "What have you got for me?" he asked, his sharp gaze sweeping over the team. "Commander," Martinez began, placing a folder on the desk, "we've reviewed the surveillance footage from the jewelry store. It's clear the vehicle seen during the robbery does not match Judge Caldwell's car." The commander raised an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "Go on." Maya stepped forward, her heart racing. "Commander, I've been wrongfully accused and treated with suspicion throughout this process. This isn't just about my reputation, it's about exposing the biases that allowed this to happen in the first place." The commander regarded her carefully, his expression unreadable. "We take allegations like this seriously, Judge Caldwell, but the witness testimony remains compelling. If we dismiss it without careful review, it could undermine our investigative integrity." "Sir," Officer Simmons interjected, her tone firm but respectful, "the witness's account is contradicted by the surveillance footage. The vehicle captured on camera is entirely different. We owe it to Judge Caldwell, and to the integrity of our department, to investigate this further." The commander nodded slowly, a hint of respect breaking through his stern demeanor. "Let's review the footage. If it corroborates your claims, we'll move forward with clearing your name." The group moved to a nearby evidence room equipped with a monitor. The tension was palpable as the video began to play. Maya's pulse quickened, her eyes fixed on the screen. The footage showed the jewelry store's entrance, and a black sedan came into view. As the camera zoomed in, Maya felt a wave of relief. The car's features, its make and model, were unmistakably different from hers. "That's not my car," she said firmly, pointing to the screen. "Mine has a distinctive license plate and unique markings that this vehicle doesn't have." The commander leaned closer, scrutinizing the footage. "I see it now. This does change things. If the witness misidentified your vehicle, we need to follow up immediately. We can't let this go unresolved." "Agreed," Martinez said, nodding vigorously. "We'll locate the witness and present this discrepancy. We'll also review additional footage to further validate Judge Caldwell's alibi." "Do it," the commander said, straightening his posture. "We'll also initiate an internal review of how this situation was handled. It's essential we learn from this to prevent similar occurrences." Relief washed over Maya as they concluded the meeting. She had walked into the station feeling like a criminal, but she left feeling like a force of reckoning. The journey to reclaim her dignity was far from over, but this was a significant step in the right direction. "Thank you for your support," Maya said to Martinez and Simmons as they exited the office. "It means the world to me." "We're in this together," Simmons replied, her voice filled with determination. "Not just for you, but for everyone affected by systemic failures." As they returned to the main office, Maya knew her next move: she needed to take control of the narrative. "I want to hold a press conference," she announced. "It's time I spoke out." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? The media can be relentless." "I don't care," Maya replied, her voice resolute. "I refuse to be a silent victim. My story needs to be heard, not just for my sake, but for everyone who's been silenced." The officers exchanged glances, recognizing the fire in her spirit. "If that's what you want," Martinez said, "we'll back you up. But let's make sure your statement is airtight before going public." "I'll coordinate with Judge Jennings," Maya said. "Her guidance will be invaluable." Within hours, the press conference was organized, and news of it began to spread. Maya carefully prepared her statement, determined to strike a balance between vulnerability and strength. She wanted her story to ignite a larger conversation about systemic injustice. When the time came, Maya stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her blazer and taking a deep breath. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "You're a judge, a fighter. You won't back down." Stepping into the packed room, she was met with a flurry of camera flashes and reporters shouting questions. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice clear and unwavering. "I stand before you not just as a judge, but as a woman who has been wrongfully accused and subjected to an injustice that countless others have faced." The room fell silent, captivated by her words. "I am grateful to the officers and detectives who have worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. Together, we have evidence disproving the allegations against me. But this isn't just about my case, it's about the urgent need for change within our legal system." Maya's words were powerful, addressing the systemic biases that had led to her wrongful accusation. She called for accountability, reform, and a collective commitment to justice. As questions poured in from reporters, she answered each with poise and conviction. When asked how she planned to address the officer who had wrongfully accused her, Maya replied firmly, "Accountability is crucial. Those who abuse their power must face consequences. But beyond that, we must educate and reform to dismantle the biases embedded in our institutions." Relief washed over Maya as they concluded the meeting. She had walked into the station feeling like a criminal, but she left feeling like a force of reckoning. The journey to reclaim her dignity was far from over, but this was a significant step in the right direction. "Thank you for your support," Maya said to Martinez and Simmons as they exited the office. "It means the world to me." "We're in this together," Simmons replied, her voice filled with determination. "Not just for you, but for everyone affected by systemic failures. As they returned to the main office, Maya knew her next move: she needed to take control of the narrative. "I want to hold a press conference," she announced. "It's time I spoke out." Martinez raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure? The media can be relentless." "I don't care," Maya replied, her voice resolute. "I refuse to be a silent victim. My story needs to be heard, not just for my sake, but for everyone who's been silenced." The officers exchanged glances, recognizing the fire in her spirit. "If that's what you want," Martinez said, "we'll back you up. But let's make sure your statement is airtight before going public." "I'll coordinate with Judge Jennings," Maya said. "Her guidance will be invaluable." Within hours, the press conference was organized, and news of it began to spread. Maya carefully prepared her statement, determined to strike a balance between vulnerability and strength. She wanted her story to ignite a larger conversation about systemic injustice. When the time came, Maya stood in front of a mirror, adjusting her blazer and taking a deep breath. "You can do this," she whispered to herself. "You're a judge, a fighter. You won't back down." Stepping into the packed room, she was met with a flurry of camera flashes and reporters shouting questions. A surge of adrenaline coursed through her. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice clear and unwavering. "I stand before you not just as a judge, but as a woman who has been wrongfully accused and subjected to an injustice that countless others have faced." The room fell silent, captivated by her words. "I am grateful to the officers and detectives who have worked tirelessly to uncover the truth. Together, we have evidence disproving the allegations against me. But this isn't just about my case, it's about the urgent need for change within our legal system." Maya's words were powerful, addressing the systemic biases that had led to her wrongful accusation. She called for accountability, reform, and a collective commitment to justice. As questions poured in from reporters, she answered each with poise and conviction. When asked how she planned to address the officer who had wrongfully accused her, Maya replied firmly, "Accountability is crucial. Those who abuse their power must face consequences. But beyond that, we must educate and reform to dismantle the biases embedded in our institutions." By the time the press conference ended, Maya felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had reclaimed her narrative and used her platform to advocate for broader change. Back at the station, messages of support poured in from colleagues, friends, and community members. The tide was turning. Maya knew her fight was far from over, but she also knew she wasn't alone. This wasn't just about her. It was a battle for dignity, equality, and justice, a fight she was determined to win. As the investigation progressed, the witness who had implicated Judge Layla Carter was located and brought under scrutiny. Under pressure, they recanted their statement, admitting they had mistaken Layla's car for another. The news sent ripples through the community, and a profound sense of vindication washed over Layla. She had fought for the truth, and now it was finally coming to light. The day of the police department's official statement arrived. Layla stood outside the precinct, flanked by Detective Marcus Perez and Officer Naomi Hill. Cameras flashed incessantly as the precinct commander approached the podium, a solemn expression on his face. "We have reviewed new evidence regarding the accusations against Judge Layla Carter," he began, his tone grave. "It is with deep regret that we acknowledge mistakes made during the initial investigation. The witness who identified Judge Carter's vehicle has admitted to misidentifying the car in question." A weight lifted from Layla's shoulders. This was the moment she had fought tirelessly to reach. She stepped forward, calm yet resolute, and addressed the gathered crowd. "I want to thank the members of the police department who worked diligently to uncover the truth," she said, her voice steady and clear. "It is vital that we acknowledge our mistakes and work toward a system where justice is truly blind, prevailing for everyone, regardless of their background." As she spoke, Layla felt the support of the crowd surrounding her. This was more than a personal victory, it was a pivotal moment in the broader fight against systemic injustice. She was determined to use her platform to ensure that the lessons learned from her ordeal would pave the way for meaningful change. The days following the announcement were a whirlwind for Judge Layla Carter. Media coverage of her case reached a fever pitch, but the tone had shifted. No longer the target of scrutiny, she had become a symbol of resilience and empowerment. As she resumed her duties in the courtroom, Layla felt a renewed sense of purpose. What had once been a routine space now felt like a battleground for justice, a place where she could advocate for those whose voices were too often silenced. Her colleagues rallied around her, offering their support and solidarity. Inspired by her journey, Layla decided it was time to share her story beyond the headlines. She reached out to local community centers and schools, organizing forums to discuss the importance of justice, equality, and representation in the legal system. On the day of her first community event, the energy in the room was electric. Students, parents, and local activists had gathered to hear her speak. As she stepped onto the stage, applause filled the hall, wrapping her in warmth and support. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I stand before you not just as a judge but as a woman who has faced adversity and emerged stronger. I want to share my story, not just to highlight my own experience, but to show you that your voices matter." The audience was captivated as Layla recounted the events that had led her to the police station, her feelings of fear and frustration, and her determination to fight back. "My struggle was never just my own," she explained. "It reflects a broader issue, one that affects countless individuals across our society. We must confront these injustices together." As she spoke, Layla saw nods of understanding ripple through the crowd. She emphasized the power of education and advocacy, encouraging attendees to engage with their local government and demand accountability. "Change starts with each of us," she asserted passionately. "You have the power to shape your future. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Your voices, your dreams, and your experiences matter." After her speech, a young girl approached, her wide eyes filled with admiration. "Judge Carter, how can I become strong like you?" she asked, her voice trembling with sincerity. Layla knelt to meet her gaze. "Strength comes from knowing who you are and standing firm in your beliefs," she said gently. "You may face challenges, but every obstacle is an opportunity to grow. Embrace your journey and never be afraid to speak up for what's right." The girl smiled, and Layla felt a wave of fulfillment. Moments like these reminded her why she had fought so hard. As Layla's outreach efforts grew, her initiatives flourished. She organized workshops on legal rights, self-advocacy, and civic engagement, creating spaces for open dialogue and empowerment. Each event drew larger crowds, energizing Layla with every interaction. But with the positive momentum came challenges. Some media outlets began questioning whether her personal experiences would cloud her judgment as a judge. Rumors swirled, suggesting that her ordeal might undermine her objectivity. Layla remained steadfast. "If anything," she told reporters, "my experiences have strengthened my commitment to justice. They've given me a unique perspective, and I intend to use it to fight for those who can't fight for themselves." One evening, as she prepared for another community forum, Layla received a call from her mentor, Judge Margaret Hayes. "Layla, I've been following your progress, and I couldn't be prouder of you," Margaret said warmly. "Thank you, Judge Hayes," Layla replied, her voice filled with gratitude. "Your support has meant everything to me." "There's still so much work to be done," Margaret said. "And I want to help you amplify your voice. There's a national conference on diversity in the judiciary coming up, and they're looking for speakers. You'd be perfect for it." The invitation thrilled Layla. "That sounds incredible. I'd love to participate. It's the perfect opportunity to advocate for real change." As the conference approached, Layla poured her energy into crafting her speech. She wanted to encapsulate her journey, her struggles, her triumphs, and her vision for a more equitable legal system. On the day of the event, Layla stood backstage, her heart pounding with anticipation. The auditorium buzzed with energy as professionals from across the nation gathered to discuss diversity and equity within the judiciary. When her name was called, Layla stepped onto the stage, the applause washing over her like a warm embrace. "Thank you for the kind welcome," she began, her voice clear and strong. "I stand before you today as a judge, a woman of color, and a survivor of systemic bias. My journey has not been easy, but every challenge has fueled my resolve to fight for justice." The audience listened intently as she recounted her experiences with discrimination and her wrongful accusation. She spoke of her determination to fight back and the allies who had stood by her. "Our legal system is not immune to the biases that permeate our society," she said passionately. "We have a responsibility to confront these issues head-on, not just in our courtrooms, but in our communities." As she concluded, the audience erupted in applause. Layla had stepped onto the stage as an individual but left it as a representative of a movement, one that sought justice and equity for all. Following her speech, attendees approached her, eager to discuss how they could join the fight. For Layla, this was just the beginning of her broader mission, to inspire others and to ensure that no one would face the injustices she had endured. Chapter 6: Building Bridges and Catalyzing Change. As conversations unfolded, Judge Layla Carter listened intently to stories of struggle, resilience, and hope shared by attendees. Each narrative was a reminder of the vast tapestry of challenges faced by marginalized communities, and Layla offered her encouragement and support. She recognized how vital these connections were, an opportunity to cultivate a network of advocates capable of enacting meaningful reform. "Thank you for sharing your story," a young lawyer said, her voice thick with emotion. "It gives me hope that I can make a difference, too." Layla smiled warmly, her heart swelling with pride. "You absolutely can. Each of us has the power to impact our communities. Never underestimate the strength of your voice." As the conference drew to a close, Layla felt a renewed sense of purpose. The connections she had made and the conversations she had sparked infused her with energy. She returned home not just as a judge but as a leader, mentor, and advocate for justice. In the weeks that followed, Layla launched new initiatives and forged collaborations with community leaders. Forums addressing police reform, educational equity, and access to justice became regular events, drawing diverse audiences eager to contribute to meaningful dialogue. Her advocacy extended beyond her personal experiences, resonating with people from all walks of life. Amidst the growing momentum, Layla remained grounded in her mission. She understood that the fight for justice was ongoing and that her story, while significant, was one chapter in a larger narrative. One evening, as she reviewed case files in her office, her phone buzzed with a call from Detective Ethan Martinez. "Judge Carter, I wanted to give you an update on the investigation into the original accusations against you," he said. "We're uncovering significant discrepancies in the officer's reports from the initial case. It's raising serious accountability questions." Layla felt a mix of relief and apprehension. "That's encouraging, Detective, but this can't just be about punitive measures. We need to focus on reforming the system to ensure this doesn't happen again." "Agreed," Martinez replied. "Your input has been invaluable in shaping this investigation. We want to take a comprehensive approach that addresses the systemic issues at play." As they spoke, Layla realized how far her journey had brought her. She had transformed from a woman fighting for her own vindication into a powerful advocate for systemic change. Her fight was no longer just about her, it was about justice for everyone who had been silenced or marginalized. The following day, Layla stood before a group of law students at a local university, eager to share her story and insights. "You are the future of our legal system," she said, her gaze sweeping across the diverse faces before her. "Your voices matter, and your experiences will shape the way justice is administered. Embrace the challenges you face, and use your platform to advocate for those who cannot." As she spoke, Layla felt the spark of change igniting in the room. She understood that her story was a catalyst, but the movement would be sustained by these students and others like them. Days turned into weeks as Layla's advocacy gained traction. Invitations to speak at events across the state poured in, and she shared her journey with audiences eager to learn and act. Her message resonated deeply, inspiring others to rise against injustice. However, with visibility came challenges. Some media outlets questioned whether her personal experiences might compromise her objectivity as a judge. Critics speculated whether she could balance her professional responsibilities with her advocacy work. Layla stood firm. "My experiences have strengthened my commitment to justice," she said in interviews. "They've given me a unique perspective that I intend to use to fight for those who can't fight for themselves." Underscore 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 underscore. The National Conference. The spotlight intensified as the date for the national conference approached. Leaders, activists, and legal professionals from across the country were set to convene, and Layla was slated to deliver the keynote address. She poured her energy into preparing her speech, determined to inspire action and drive systemic reform. Late one evening, her mentor, Judge Margaret Hayes, offered her wisdom. "Layla, your story is powerful, but remember to connect it to the broader struggles others face," Margaret said. "People need to see that your experiences reflect challenges shared by many." "I understand," Layla replied, her determination evident. "I want this speech to inspire action, not just sympathy. We need to move beyond conversation and toward meaningful solutions." Underscore 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 underscore. A call to action. The day of the conference arrived, and Layla stood backstage, her heart racing with anticipation. The auditorium buzzed with energy, filled with attendees eager to engage in discussions on reform and equity. As her name was called, she stepped into the spotlight, greeted by applause that filled the room like a wave of encouragement. "Thank you for that warm introduction," she began, scanning the audience with purpose. "Today, I want to talk to you about resilience, justice, and the urgent need for systemic change." Layla's voice carried authenticity and conviction as she shared her story. She wove her personal journey with the broader struggles of marginalized communities, highlighting the systemic biases embedded in the legal system. "Justice should not be a privilege reserved for a few," she declared, her voice rising with passion. "It must be accessible to everyone, regardless of their background. This isn't just a fight for my name, it's a fight for the dignity of every individual who has ever felt powerless." The audience was captivated as she outlined her vision for a legal system rooted in fairness, equality, and respect. She urged attendees to engage with their communities, understand their unique challenges, and champion policies that foster equitable justice. "The time for change is now," she concluded, her heart racing with fervor. "We have the power to create a system that truly serves all people. Let us rise together to ensure every voice is heard and valued." As she stepped off the stage, the applause was deafening. Layla felt a profound sense of accomplishment, knowing her words had sparked something powerful. Following her keynote address, attendees approached Layla with gratitude and eagerness to collaborate. A young lawyer, her eyes bright with inspiration, said, "Your speech was incredible, Judge Carter. I want to start forums in my community to address these issues. How do I get started?" Layla smiled, feeling a surge of pride. "That's the spirit. Begin by connecting with local organizations and leaders. Create spaces for open dialogue and collaboration. Remember, every voice matters, and together, we can make a difference. As the conference continued, Layla networked with like-minded advocates, exchanging strategies and building alliances. At a reception that evening, she met a seasoned activist named Marcus Green, who had spent decades fighting for social justice. "You're an inspiration, Judge Carter," Marcus said. "Your story is galvanizing, and your work is vital. Let's collaborate. I'd love to help amplify your efforts." Layla knew this was just the beginning. With every story shared and every connection made, the ripple effect of her advocacy grew stronger. She had become more than a judge, she was a symbol of hope and a force for change. And she was just getting started. "Judge Carter, your story resonates with so many of us," Marcus said, his voice rich with conviction. "We need leaders like you who can bridge the gap between the legal system and the communities it's meant to serve. Your experiences give you a perspective that's desperately needed." Layla's heart swelled with gratitude. "Thank you, Marcus. I believe we can create real change if we work together. Our collective voices can amplify the call for justice and equity." As they discussed potential collaborations, Layla felt empowered. Together, they began crafting a grassroots initiative aimed at fostering dialogue between law enforcement and the community. Their goals were clear: build trust, educate individuals about their rights, and collaboratively address systemic issues. Returning home after the conference, Layla immediately began organizing the project. She gathered a diverse group of individuals, activists, police officers, educators, and local leaders, to participate in workshops and discussions. Topics ranged from police-community relations to legal rights and the importance of civic engagement. The initiative quickly gained traction. Layla soon found herself facilitating open forums where police officers and community members could engage directly. At the first session, tension filled the air. Community members approached the dialogue with skepticism, while officers maintained a guarded stance. "Why should we trust you?" a community member asked pointedly, her arms crossed. "You represent a system that has failed us time and again." Layla met the woman's gaze, her voice steady. "I understand your distrust. I'm here to listen, to understand, and to work together to find solutions. Change begins with dialogue. We cannot move forward without addressing the issues that divide us." Slowly, the walls of mistrust began to crumble. Police officers shared the challenges they faced on the job, while community members articulated their fears and frustrations. By the end of the session, a sense of camaraderie had started to develop. "We've taken the first step toward building trust," Layla said, her heart full. "Let's continue this journey together and create a safer, more equitable community for everyone." Over the following months, the initiative flourished. Relationships between law enforcement and the community began to evolve, and difficult topics such as systemic bias and accountability were addressed head-on. The impact of these efforts rippled through the community. Layla was invited to speak at schools, churches, and local organizations, sharing her story of resilience and advocacy. She encouraged others to take action in their own neighborhoods, emphasizing that change required everyone's participation. Even amid these successes, Layla remained vigilant. She understood that the fight for justice was an ongoing battle. Systemic issues were deeply entrenched, and meaningful progress would take time. One day, during a community forum, Layla received news that reignited her passion. A coalition of activists had decided to organize a march for justice to raise awareness about systemic racism and advocate for police reform. They wanted Layla to be a leading voice in the movement. "Judge Carter, your experiences and insights have inspired so many of us," one organizer said. "We'd be honored if you would help lead this march. You've become a symbol of hope for everyone fighting for change." Layla felt a surge of determination. "It would be my honor," she replied, her voice filled with conviction. "This is an opportunity to amplify our message and unite our community in the fight for justice." As the march approached, excitement and anticipation filled the air. Layla collaborated with organizers to ensure the event was inclusive and impactful. Local artists, musicians, and speakers were invited to create a vibrant lineup that reflected the community's diversity. On the day of the march, Layla stood at the forefront, surrounded by supporters holding signs with messages like "Justice for All" and "End Systemic Racism." The energy was electric. "Today, we stand together to demand change," she called out, her voice echoing through the crowd. "We will not be silent. Our voices will be heard." As the march wove through neighborhoods, more individuals joined, their voices blending into a powerful chorus for change. The atmosphere was one of hope and determination, and Layla felt immense pride in the movement they were building. At the city square, Layla took the stage, her heart racing with anticipation. "Thank you all for being here today," she began, her voice strong and resonant. "We are here not just for ourselves but for the countless individuals who have faced injustice and discrimination. We will not rest until every voice is heard." The crowd erupted in applause. Layla spoke about community advocacy, systemic reform, and the collective power of unity. "Together, we can reshape our future," she declared. "Together, we can create a world where justice is not just a word but a reality for everyone." In the months that followed, Layla continued her work, organizing more forums and events to foster understanding and collaboration. She partnered with local officials to advocate for policy changes that would create a more equitable legal system. The coalition of activists grew, launching initiatives focused on education, youth engagement, and community empowerment. Layla's story inspired many, and her unwavering commitment to justice fueled a movement gaining momentum across the state. Looking back on her journey, Layla marveled at how far she had come. From being wrongfully accused to becoming a leading voice for justice, she had transformed her pain into purpose. Layla Carter understood that the fight for justice was far from over. The challenges ahead were daunting, but she was ready to face them with the same resilience and courage that had carried her this far. She knew that real change required collective action, and she was determined to lead the charge. As she walked forward, surrounded by a growing network of advocates, Layla reaffirmed her belief in the power of unity and resilience. Together, they would rise from the ashes of injustice to create a brighter, more equitable future for all.